Business and Armenian HR Association to our live conversation on the theme Living with Myself on the Times of Lockdown. By the way, the topic was picked based on our needs assessment that we did with HR community. So this was the hottest theme that was chosen. I want to, first of all, I want to tell about the format of today's conversation, because it is conversation. It is a real conversation. It's not webinar. So please feel free to write your comments, express your ideas in chat or via mic and video. So whatever you do, it's fully appreciated and expected. So this is the format of today's meeting. And the next thing I want to do to introduce Deanna Danielian, who is a marriage and family therapist, and she works a lot with trauma and have extensive experience with helping people to overcome their challenges, like personal challenges in their lives. So as you see, she's the right person to be here. And besides, she's my best friend. We are friends more than 25 years. More. I'm not that exact in numbers. And thank you, Diana. Thank you, Diana, for being with us and for your eagerness to share your thoughts and whatever you see in the market now. Thank you and hello.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Arpi, for inviting me. I couldn't say no to Arpi because I didn't want to disappoint her, first of all. But then I thought if anything in this interesting times we can do is to share our experiences, what we know, and especially in this forum, I actually appreciate that it's more of a conversation as opposed to I don't know, talk to a group of people. So I really welcome everybody to participate, ask questions, share your own experiences. Let's just make the best out of this hour.
Yeah, we have only 1 hour, so
it's one therapy session.
Yeah, one therapy session or one coaching session.
Right, or one coaching session.
Yeah, from my practice.
Yes.
Okay, you know, I have prepared questions, and we spent a lot of time with Deanna talking what we can talk and what's better not to talk. So I have questions. I have questions, and I will be kind of moderator of our conversation today. And the first question that I want to address and ask is what are the main issues that people bring to you nowadays during this lockdown period? What you're working with now?
Right. So I'm a marriage and family therapist, which means I focus a lot on relational issues. And when I remember very well, it was a Friday, I don't know now, what, 4, 5, 6 weeks ago, when I realized that there's no more coming back to the office. And I kind of panicked thinking, I guess I'm not going to have a work for a while, for an indefinite time. But I was wrong because apparently there was, and is more of a need for support. People are looking for, to vent, to talk, to share, to ask for advice. And not only my current clients, but I have a lot of calls from people that are new clients. And it's the first time that I'm ever starting doing tele kind of video or phone sessions with people that I've never met. But the need is very high. And part of the one big reason is that because there's a very, high elevated stress level with most people. So the baseline is pretty elevated. And that's on top of the issues that people were experiencing before or experiencing right now, or thinking about the future. So there is an escalation of some very, difficult emotions, confusion, frustration. I think, and I'm looking at it from a relational perspective. So a lot happening in the same space at the same time. People are either on top of each other, and it can be family, it could be, other people, or they're wishing that someone was with them. So in every situation, whether they're alone or with other people, there is boundary, there's crossover of boundaries, there's crossover of roles. So right now I'm sitting in my bedroom, which is my office, in my bedroom and in my home. So I have a role of a mother, I have a role of a professional. So I go from basically doing different roles in the same space. And this seems to be an issue with, many people that are, that I'm providing therapy sessions right now. And so the overall state seems to be stress, state very similar to traumatic experiences. So the basic definition of trauma is too much, too fast, too soon, and for too long, right? And if you look at it, that's exactly what we're experiencing. And people have different responses to trauma. The well-known response to trauma is fight, flight, freeze, and the reactions that I'm hearing from people, responses that I'm hearing are very similar to that, or exactly that. Now, within the same home, people can have different responses. So one can be in a very emotional state of fear, and the other one can be very present, maybe even planning something for the future. The other day, somebody was saying, my husband is trying to do some construction on the house. How can he think about that when right now we're in this state, right? And so the work is about really balancing two. There's no right answer. Nobody knows any right answers right now. Nobody can say that exactly what we should be doing, but it's important to, instead of focusing on each other's weaknesses and what irritates us, to focus more on how can we balance, how can we use different approaches. That's the overall kind of what I'm doing right now. Of course, people are stuck in different situations. Some there are couples, there are families that kind of stuck in different places, and so they're now practicing long distance relationships. There are people who just announced their divorce and ended up living in the same space because otherwise they can't see their children. There are people who've been fine for 25 years and just in the middle of this chaos told each other that they're not going to live with each other anymore, but they have to continue staying in the same space. So that's a very interesting situations. But the base of it is the stress level and all these emotions that we're experiencing as a response of this traumatic situation.
Do you know what I remembered when we were talking about, and actually I'm experiencing the same with my practice because I'm not in therapy, but I'm more in coaching, but I'm experiencing the same. And we were talking with you, do you remember about like when you can't go outside, you go inside. Yes. So now we are going inside, and I would love you to comment on this, like how to go inside and like be happy.
Yeah, it's actually one of my favorite sayings. It came for me, I see it all over the internet and so on, but for me, it came from my yoga teacher who's been saying a lot of wisdom. And he said, the times when we can't go outside, we go inside. And I think it's really, it sounds beautiful, but not that easy to do, but very important to practice in nowadays. So we can't use the environment as much as we used to. We can't really, what we were doing, we were abusing it, right? We were constantly out, constantly thinking that we need to go, we need to access, we need to buy, we need to get something to be satisfied, to be content. When right now we're learning that a lot of these things are really not necessary. And this might sound not so nice or right, I don't know, but a client of mine was saying the other day, he's a father of 3 kids, and he says, it's the first time ever I have $6,000 saved. I've never had that amount of money. It's only, nothing changed. They're both teachers, they're working from home. The only thing is that we're not doing all these things. We're not getting out, we're not buying little things, we're not spending on, we're all ladies here on this forum, we're not doing our nails once or twice a week. We're not, I don't know, there are lots of things.
I cut my hair yesterday by myself. So
that's right. You will learn things, but it's the kind of a practical aspect of it. The emotional aspect of it is we also don't get lots of satisfaction from being outside, being with friends, going to the bar, going to the gym, doing all these things outside, which are in a way a distraction, right? So we are left being with ourselves, and so what do we do with that? A lot of people are very uncomfortable. A lot of people are kind of scared sitting there and hearing their own thoughts, their own fears, their own, needs even, right? Or just evaluating the situation they're in, just in general in life or stage of their life. And but I think it's very important that we learn to do that. We just, access our own resources. What am I? What do I like? What can I do right now? What if I have no entertainment of the world or my friends? Or, we can still have that. Of course, we can access our friends online, and I think it's very important we do that. But, what can we do with ourselves, right? I think you were saying something about the Crusoe syndrome. Maybe you can
Yeah, the Crusoe syndrome. Yeah. It was very interesting article I was sharing with Diana. It was an article when we were doing, like, the author was making parallel between, you know, Daniel Defoe's Robinson Crusoe story and the times that we are passing now. And he was saying, like, it was like very, very similar, because Crusoe, he experienced and started to do the things that we are doing now, like noticing small details, prioritizing the things, and even making, like, enjoying every single moment in his life, like small things that makes him happy, and, you know, these things that we are experiencing now. But I'm not sure we're on the same condition, because we're not locked that much. There is a lot of interaction.
Yes,
but
we have a lot of resources. I agree with that. There's a lot we can do, especially now that everybody's you know, offering all these interesting things online. But you know, I think these, now that's becoming, I mean, I think it's great and we should be doing it. But one of the things that I'm thinking myself, for myself and also for my clients, is that even that, right now, even listening to the news now is becoming this other thing that not only provokes so much anxiety and panic, but also it's another distraction from just being with ourselves. And I think what's really important is that we find time for all of these things. So now there's no schedule. There's no, now I go to gym, then I go to work, then I come back, then I cook, then we eat, then we go out, then we come back. But we can create some routine within this time, right? So, you know, people say, you know, I had actually a really interesting experience with a young lady I work with who said, you know, I realized for the first time that my anxiety is not really from my work, because we were working on how she gets very anxious at work, she gets panic attacks at work, and now she's working in her bedroom. And she said, I realized it's not my work, it's me. I carry this anxiety with myself, right? So that's a very important realization. And now that she can identify, now that she can see that this is happening within herself, she can hopefully kind of work with it and deal with it and manage it.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah,
good point. Let me just because you mentioned anxiety, and we spoke a lot about, like, using the words. Like, people are saying I'm lonely, like people are saying I'm anxiety, or I am, like, passing, like my clients are saying we are in depression. Yeah. Okay, so everything, you know, there is a big, like, connection between the words that you use and your state of mind and state of how you feel yourself. And what is a real difference between, for example, panic and anxiety, for example? Just I'm curious.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. It's very important. You know, Esther Perel, one of my favorite psychologists, also Gabor Mate, the Canadian psychologist, we're talking about this, how the language is affecting our state even more, right? So we can create more anxiety with our own words. We can, an example again happened just yesterday. A young gentleman says, you know, I am suffering at work, and he goes on and on and on. So I brought him back. Of course, I'm not going to pretend that I know he's suffering or he's not suffering, but by asking him questions, I wanted him to really evaluate the words he's using, and is this what's happening? So he ended up saying, when I asked him, you know, tell me more about how do you suffer, what happens? He said to me, well, I had a really hard time at work. But even saying that, changing the word suffering to I had a very difficult day at work, or I had, my manager was, you know, difficult, whatever, that changed the tone of how he was saying that. That changes the way he perceived his own reality, right? And that's very important. So in today's situation, there are a lot of very strong words: isolation, restriction. I don't know, all these words sound very severe and very, and it is, right? I mean, the reality is we are restricted from things. We are experiencing a lot of grief. Grief is another word we're using a lot nowadays. But we can replace it to make it more manageable. We can, I mean, what I liked Esther Perel saying the other day was that we can use words such as being with myself, cocooning. When she said the word cocooning, that resonated with me so much, because cocooning to me is like this self-care. It's like going inward, you know, hugging yourself, staying with yourself, completely changes the perception of what you're saying to yourself, right? So instead of I'm restricted, I have to isolate, you know, it's a time when I'm gonna cocoon. So actually going from there to panic and anxiety, there's a very fine line between anxiety and panic. Anxiety, just like anger, just like, you know, this very unpleasant feelings such as anger, fear, anxiety is unpleasant, but they're very necessary emotions. They're necessary because they're protective. They, you know, signal that we need to do things. So when we're anxious, when we're worried, we can do right things. You know, we can create a situation, we can create an environment that is safer. But when we're panicking, we're not already in a kind of proper, I don't know if proper is not a right word, but not in a healthy state of mind. So people that panic are the ones who got the, you know, this whole thing with toilet papers and stacking on things that are not really necessary. So the focus is not on something that realistically needed or calming in a way, or, you know, or manages the situation. So, but or the other thing is, yeah, you mentioned depression. I feel so depressed, or I feel lonely, I feel alone. And I think it's important that we talk about the lonely and alone, being with myself versus feeling, you know, lonely. It's very important to sit with our feelings and to really untangle them. So if you guys, everybody probably knows the sticks game. I don't know if there's a specific name for it, but they're like tiny sticks with different colors. Kids play that. They just drop the sticks and then pick up one by one without trying not to touch the other pieces, other sticks. So the emotions, I often tell my clients, are just like that. You know, we have a pile of them. We have all kinds of, right now, like I said, as a reaction to this traumatic or stressful situation, we have, this is like prolonged grief, right? We're experiencing impulsivity, frustration, anger, fear, you know, the unknown creates all these different emotions. It's so important to sit down and untangle, just like the sticks, take them one by one and just watch them, observe them, sit with them without trying to just push it aside and do something different so we don't feel it, because they're not going to go anywhere. Those feelings are going to be there. If anything, they will grow, they will become something, they'll come out in some other way. In a way, our body stores that, right? It doesn't just discharge without us paying attention to it. And the only way it will discharge if we stay, we watch, we observe, and then kind of try to solve it by whether letting go or
like, should I decode it that like this period is the perfect time to go and raise our emotional intelligence?
I wish it was that easy. But
yeah, you said we should be positive, so we like, yes, okay, it's good. I work on my emotional intelligence.
Absolutely. Well, you gotta, you know, you have to have to want to have it more, right, in a way. But no, what I mean is, yes, absolutely. I think it's, in a way, we're forced to pay attention to ourselves, to what we have, right, like I said earlier. So whether it's the emotional intelligence or some self-improvement, some finding time to kind of pay attention to your wants and needs, you know, and other people are just evaluating their relationships, right? Like, okay, here's the situation, here I am. And what does that mean to be with this close person that's supposed to be the closest person to me in the same space for so long? It's easier when we leave and come back, when we have, I don't know, 12-hour work days. So, but now I'm really, in a way, forced, yeah, to sit and to evaluate my own situation, whether it's my intelligence level, whether it's what do I know about this thing, join a group. Somebody was saying the other day, like joining parents group, joining men's group, joining, I don't know, painting group, right? There's so many opportunities to finally take a little time to work on something you want to work. Yeah, I mean, when you say I reacted to emotional intelligence because I wish that was the thing we could sit down and do, or even want to do, right? A lot of people don't even, you know, pay attention to that. But it's an opportunity. It's a time to, you know, we're surviving, but we can also thrive in this situation, right? So we don't have to be in a survival mode waiting for it to end. We can use the time while we're doing everything for the situation to be livable, tolerable, survivable. Also, we can thrive in it. So yeah, do whatever you like to do. It's the time not to put any pressure on yourself. We are constantly living with pressure to achieve, to, I don't know, learn, to make money, to make this and that. It's important not to put that much pressure right now, I think. our bodies are wiser than our mind, I think, in many ways. So it's important to listen to the wisdom of our body. You know, I never, since I remember myself being a grown up, an adult, I never slept in as much as I sleep in now. And you know, I mean, even if I wanted to, just a month, 2 months ago, I couldn't sleep that much. Now I do. And I'm thinking, it's not up to me. I didn't decide that. Somehow my body's responding in a way that, you know, it needs to sleep, it needs to rest more.
Mm-hmm.
And to that point, actually, I was reading an interesting article in New Yorker yesterday about the research that this clinical psychologist did on the spacecraft and people that lived in submarines, you know, long time ago. It's very interesting because it kind of proved my I don't know, doubts or worries about why am I sleeping this much? Why am I so kind of slowed down? Is when they studied people on spacecrafts and submarines, the psychosocial aspect of it, they realized that there's a serious physiological changes that happen with people. So overall activity level kind of goes down. So
Mm-hmm.
it's an adaptive mechanism, I guess, right? And then things change in the brain, the way the brain responds to outside impulses. So our body knows how to adapt. Our body knows how to change, to adjust, so we can kind of, you know, manage the whatever emotional state we're in. So it's very important to go, when we talk about going inward and really, you know, ask and stay with yourself. What do I feel like doing right now? You know, somebody like Arpi, who is so, you know, ambitious and likes to learn, says, well, I have to. What if you just let go of the I have to's and just say, what do I want to right now?
It's
What do
very
I,
good
what,
point.
you know,
It's very good point, because right now I'm like, what I find in people that are talking to me in my professional area, like people are saying, oh, we have to use this time, we have to learn, we have to grow, we have to like upload you know, ourselves and get more knowledge and be more adaptable, get new skills, and you know, react then when everything is done, we are ready for new world, etc., etc. But you really feel that they are not ready for that, because what they need is to have rest. What they need is to have some time for themselves. What they need is to enjoy those moments, or even not enjoy, but sleep as you are doing. I don't. I don't know why. Something is wrong with my clocks.
yeah,
But
not
whatever
wrong.
it is, I mean, it's not obligatory. People really feel that it's obligatory, that they learn and develop, and you know, but it's very individual.
Yes, it's very individual, and it's very important to listen to yourself. Very important. There's a lot of irritability. There's a lot of this tension already, right? We need to, you know, one of the issues, again, another issue, I guess, that arises a lot is people would say to me, you know, that one thing that I used to kind of be annoyed now really irritates me. It could be as simple as, I don't know, leaving the cup on a whatever, on a table or something, right? Now it really irritates me. So we have to go back and see, is it the cup that really irritates you, or it's this irritation that you're experiencing due to many things? And to be very careful not to let this anger or turn this anger onto each other. Anger, frustration, irritation, all these things, right? All these confusing kind of emotions. We have to be careful, and instead of doing that to each other, whether it's my child, the partner, whoever, you know, instead focus on the strength of each other, because we can, that's another way of resourcing, right? You know, if going back to that example that I said earlier, if the husband says, you know, I want to do construction, right, and I'm sitting here in fear, I don't want him to judge me for my fear. Maybe he can take something from my fear and say, okay, well, what would comfort you? What do you think we need to do so we're not as fearful? So we have to have these conversations, not just ask each other, so how are you doing? And move on, right? But more, what do you need right now? What can I provide? This actually leads me also to the boundaries. It's so important that when we are so close or not close at all, right, depending on who's where, we ask for what we need in a way that is achievable as much as possible. So we're restricted physically, but spiritually we're not restricted. Emotionally, imagination-wise, we're not restricted. So there are things we can do, we can play. One of the things that the researcher was talking about, the submarine, right? So this young people at 19, 20 were on a submarine for, I think it was 70 days or something. And that's a long time to be in a space, sleeping on top of each other, being so close to each other. And when they interviewed people who are now, much older, they're saying, we don't remember feeling that it was bad, because we created games, we created little tricks, and certain things were not allowed. Like he was saying, the gambling wasn't allowed, but we found ways to still kind of imitate that. We would give each other, I don't know, cigarettes or food, share photographs of our families. Everybody became very close. We shared things. So there's always, things we can do in the situation. And most importantly, just kind of, being present and asking yourself, what can I do with the present, right?
Yeah.
People talk a lot about being with little children. So a lot of parents are stuck with their very adorable little 2, 3 children, and it's wonderful, but at the same time, it's very difficult. How do you create space when you have little kids? I think it's a great opportunity to teach your children to, do something to be able to be helpful, right? So if you say to a child, look, mama's gonna need a little quiet time. Because that quiet time is important, blah, 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 so I can then be with you, right? You're teaching two things to this child. One, that your child can actually do something for you, can be helpful. And the other thing is that you're also teaching them how to take a break, what to do, that's a coping skill, right? If we could take a little quiet time during the day, if we could take from 5-10 minutes of meditation to just 60 minutes of doing nothing, no TV, no computer, just having some silence, just being with whatever, that's a wonderful thing for us. It's also a great skill to teach your children. So there are opportunities like that, right? Have a conversation with your partner without having all kinds of distractions, without needing to plan something for tomorrow, for in a month. Right now, we can't plan anything. We're still grieving things that we kind of lost, right? I mean, I had plans to travel, to come back, graduations, this and that, all kinds of things. Now everything's poof, gone. So in a way, it's interesting, how do we live without planning anything? It's scary, but at the same time, here's an opportunity to be in a completely different place. So when there's chaos, there are opportunities too. Right, opportunities of letting go of attachment.
I was just thinking that like my boys, they are not kids, they are like quite big and tall and mature. But during this time, when we were stuck at home and they are like, we are living together, like I'm seeing them every single minute during the daytime, they really learned a lot of things, like the things that you're mentioning, like take care, see what I need and address what I need, and help each other. And even they, if I look to the relations, like the relations between them too, because there's like 7 years difference, I can see a big improvement. They were like friends, but now they are much more like closer than they were before. So there is always a positive side. I do agree. And another thing I want to mention, that when people are asking how you're coping with this situation, how do you feel, etc., etc., I'm using positive words, even if I really feel that it's like it really sucks. I'm saying, well, it's very interesting times. And when I say this, I feel that it's really like interesting times. I just live with that. And feel better. I don't know, just thoughts back to what you were saying.
No, I agree with you. I think, I was saying this, now we also have to, of course, consider that a lot of people are in a really, much more difficult situations. And we have to kind of respect and understand that it's not, but in any situation, there can be something, of course, that we can focus on, what could be done. Now, this one line that is flying around is that we control what we can, just control what you can, right? I think it's important, it's important to think about what can I do? What is my situation? What's positive here? how do I deal with the negative? By using my resources. So it's that looping thing. You go to the positive, you come back to what you need to manage, and manage it that way. So another really difficult thing was, and you mentioned before, the alone versus lonely. And then we should probably open to some questions. Everybody's very quiet, but the loneliness is a big issue, right? Again, it's a word, it's a term we use. There's a huge difference between being alone, being with yourself, and being lonely. You can be very lonely around other people, and you can be you can be alone feeling absolutely fine. A lot of people love being alone. I love being having the solitude, being alone, but being lonely, especially with somebody around, that can actually be, you know, really difficult. And there's a lot of science, there's a lot of research done on that. There are neuroscientists that are actually just studying loneliness. Apparently, I've learned that recently, that there's a minister of loneliness in UK. I don't think it's a joke. I think it's serious. I did not check my facts, but yeah. So there's it's a modern understanding from what I see. You know, historically, I actually, especially for our culture, right? Being alone, being lonely was almost impossible, right? Because people lived together, everything was in such a dependency and exchange and so on. It's more of a newer thing, you know. It starts with, or I kind of intertwines with privacy, alone, lonely, and it kind of goes all around. But loneliness, as a term that actually includes that suffering, grief, is a very thing being. You know, you can be alone and be very happy. And I think it's very important to be able to be alone. But lonely includes suffering, grief, and it's a very unhealthy state if somebody's in that lonely state for a long time, right? So some of the research is actually explaining loneliness almost as homelessness. And to me, it makes sense. And I'll explain, because it doesn't sound very right. But every human being needs sense of belonging, right? Sense of home. A home can be at the bar when we're with the friends. A home can be at work, right? And then you can be really lonely and feel homeless in your very beautiful home. So the sense of belonging, where you are loved and you love and you're needed, is that sense that is different from loneliness, right? Exactly. And that's a state where people are finding themselves a lot. And that's a place, when I say evaluate your situation, look into what's happening, you know, I think it's a very sad thing, right? To find yourself feeling lonely, but you don't just say it's sad and you go on suffering. But
yeah. I have another question, and I think it will be the last one, and then we will pass over to our participants. Just again, from my practice, like people, you know, a lot of people are coming to me saying, look, we want to change our lives. It's very proper time. Like, we want to divorce, we want to change our jobs, we want to re-qualify and get new skills. We want to change environment, we want to change country, we want to change the company, we want to like change. Right. And my question to you is, I mean, is it right moment to do like big decisions in the life? Because I mean, yeah, in stress, because we are passing, as you mentioned, trauma. I will make it like more slight, like stress, but is it right time to do big decisions? What do you think?
Yeah, it's interesting. It is a very common thing in nowadays. Oh, I'm gonna move. Oh, I'm gonna change. I'm gonna divorce. I'm gonna leave. No, and this is not just my opinion. This is what I hear from my colleagues, other professionals who are working with that right now. It's not a right time to make big decisions. Just simply because we're not in a calm, stable, quiet kind of place to make decisions like that. You know, when I always use this example. It was a great learning experience for me. I used to work with young children with trauma, with serious traumas of sexual abuse, physical abuse, and these children were removed from their homes. So they were still in a place of transition. You know, they could be in a foster home today, tomorrow they could be in a group home. And we as clinicians were there supposed to heal their traumas, you know, help them with their traumas. And one thing was very clear. I worked in that environment for a long time, and you know, you do everything to provide a moment of stability for a child, and we were looking for homes for them, trying to create some stability. But one thing became very clear, that we could not help them, and there would be no full healing happening while these kids are in this transition, while they're unstable, right? So until there is that feeling of stability, consistency, belonging, there will be no healing for a human being. And right now we don't have any of those things. We don't have stability. We don't have any, we don't know what's tomorrow. We are in a prolonged state of in kind of the words we're using right now: indefinite, unknown. You can predict, you can't plan. We're not stable. We're not in a stable, good place, which absolutely affects our mind. So making big decisions like that, I advise my clients, just stay and do what you can do right now. Manage your time, make it not just livable, but really make it as positive as possible. Make changes, ask for what you need, ask for what you need in a very clear, simple way. Don't expect, don't assume. People deal with situations differently. So ask for what you need, let this go for now, and make decisions, bigger decisions later. It's a good time to think. It's a good time to kind of collect information about yourself, your relationships, and everything else, but not to make decisions here now.
Like even if it is the right decision, it's still a stress because
it could be a right decision, but we don't need additional stress. We don't need to make it more difficult right now, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Colleagues, what do you think? Do you have any comments on the topic that we're discussing with Diana? Just would love to listen your feedback.
Yeah, feel free. Just thoughts, questions, agreements, disagreements.
Stones.
If I may just jump in, we were talking about the wording and how vocabulary affects our current new routine. I was thinking about my own vocabulary or the state that I'm living in right now. It is as if I am passing a constant exam and if I'm failing. So the failure could be one of the words to, describe the state I'm in. Sometimes I feel like I'm failing as mom, failing as a colleague because I'm not where I should be, even though we're Zooming, we're like constant email exchange and stuff. Probably failing as a daughter, I don't know, so I can't really explain, but like my whole routine is falling apart. I know this does not depend on me solely, and this is like a force majeure and stuff. Of course, I do understand it, but this constant state of failure is with me. And how do I know it's not the right question to ask, but okay, how do you feel that this can be addressed in a way?
I actually think it's a very good question. It's a feeling that I think we can all relate to. It's the different roles that we were talking about in the beginning, right? So we worry about our parents. We worry as daughters, sons. We also worry as parents. We then have to take care of ourselves. The best thing we can do in these situations when we're feeling so needed and we feel like it's not enough, right? I'm not enough to be there for everyone and provide. And I think the best thing is, again, to go back to yourself and take care of yourself. It's very important right now to be kind to yourself, to be embracing, to be loving, so you can be available, right? When you talk about your children, you feel like, I'm failing them as parents. What can I do? I don't feel like doing these things. I want to do it. I should do more. You're putting so much pressure. You're not being kind to yourself. You need to take care of yourself so you can be, the best thing you can do for your children right now is to be good to yourself by showing it to them, by modeling it, but also by, taking care of yourself so you're available, right? Does that make sense?
It does, but I tried, in the beginning I tried, and then I found myself trapped in a new thing, as if you're pretending, you're playing this role, and then in the end of the day, when everyone is doing something for themselves, you are so exhausted, like you're literally drained because of these roles. Because this is not something that comes naturally. It's something that you assume for this particular, point in time. So that too kind of is exhaustive. So it should be genuine, I know, but how to do that? that's the
Sounds like you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself, and again, very common. Nobody's prepared for these situations. Nobody knows. There's no script. There's no, we'll learn after. Everybody's going to say, oh, when,
Yeah,
actually,
exactly.
when we sit down for meals with my family, I asked a few times, I said, in several weeks or in a few months, hopefully, we're going to look back and say, oh, I should have done that. I should have, because I had time then, I should have done that. And everybody kind of asked each other, well, what would that be? I think that's an important question to ask yourself. But I think overall, this pressure this is how we're wired in this modern society. Oh, what am I doing? What am I not doing enough? I should do more. I should do better. Who's doing what and I need to do. But if we could just take off that pressure, it would be so much. When you talk about genuine, I think that's what you're talking about. Just naturally, again, listen to yourself, ask your children, how are you feeling? Tell them how are you feeling. Teach them to listen, to do that active listening. We always think that in any situation, I think we're wired to, especially people that come to webinars like this, right? We want to learn, we want to be more capable, more able to do things. But it's not about fixing or doing things. It's more about being present for others, right? Just be available, be present, first of all, for yourself, but also then for your children, for your family. When my mother lives in a different, my mother lives in Armenia and I'm here, and it bothers me, it makes me feel very guilty. So that sense of guilt that we have, right? We live with this guilt of, oh, well, look, I'm sitting here and I'm doing work on my computer and I'm eating, drinking, I'm fine, but I'm not there for my parent, or I'm not there for, another person or somebody. So we can obviously think and do what we can to be of help, but at the same time, the best help is to make that phone call and have more of a kind of a profound, conversation, just asking, just showing an interest in people, right? If they need advice, you advise them, but it's not even about advice or how to fix other people's problems, but more attending to their needs, attending to their emotions, to their feelings, showing an interest in them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so we'll just
yes,
have more engagement. This is what I got from here, no?
Yeah, more engagement, more availability, but start with yourself. Don't ignore yourself and exhaust yourself by putting so much pressure that I have to. Just go back, just be real with your kids. Tell them, this is sometimes, you don't want to tell little children I'm scared, but in a way, it's worrisome, but we're doing this. What can we do better? How can we speak to them? Kids sometimes have the best suggestions, and it's only when you give them that that respect and that listening ear, right? When they say, oh, let's do this. And actually watching kids, I think it's amazing. And I've been doing that in this times, I have little kids of friends and relatives that, just connect them and watch them play. I think it's pretty amazing how they're so resilient, right? And we need to use that resilience. There's like this global resilience that we all have to fit into. But be kind to yourself, be nice to yourself, allow yourself to be, if you want to use the word lazy, be lazy. It's that time that we should allow ourselves to do that, I think.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Questions?
Yeah, I have one actually.
Yes.
And we just spoke about changes, and I just wanted to share something about myself. Recently, I've been realizing it more and more that I'm kind of very afraid about changes, like big changes in my life. And I feel that I'm gonna be like reluctant, very reluctant in accepting any change that is going to come in my life. Although I also realize that it is going to happen sooner or later. So I just want to understand if I'm the only one who is afraid of changes, and how can I overcome this feeling?
I'm just curious, are you talking about changes related to right now, the virus, or in general, we're talking about changes?
No, in general. Let's say, for example, a change that is going to come in my career, let's say.
So that creates worries, maybe creates some anxiety.
Yeah, kind of.
Well, I think changes are difficult for a lot of people. Changes are not that easy to make. They can be exciting, they can be great changes, they can be something you want to happen, but at the same time have anxiety about it. again, I never suggest the pushing or forcing yourself into something. Check in with your readiness, right? I mean, it's a very big question. I wish, and I know we can do that here if it was a little more specific, but in general, whenever we're not ready for anything, or we have fear, we have anxiety, it's a sign that maybe there is not enough readiness for it, right? That doesn't mean you don't make the change, you don't go for a change, but I think it means that we need to, again, stay with it, observe it. What is the fear? What is the worry? Untangle things. Again, connect it, don't connect it. One thing I wanted to say earlier is the way we respond, or maybe I did say that, the way we respond to any kind of trauma is really very much depending on our own previous traumas, our own story, our history, just upbringing, many things, right? So for instance, and I'll come back to your question in a moment, but for instance, when this first started happening, there was a lot of associations for me with the late 80s and 90s Arpi, right? So there were, and it was a very different situation, but for me, it was like, oh, we're going through another big global kind of thing, like I've experienced when I was a much younger person. And so you relate to that. You have
Deanna, you're still young. Okay.
That's but there were the emotions were coming from there. I knew that it was, oh, this is what we did back then, and this is what's happening right now. So there's connection. But it's important to stay with. So when there is a fear of anything, or there's a worry or anxiety about anything, stay with it until you recognize, what is it really about? What is it connecting to? Where was it the change in the past that was, good or not so good? Or what were you told about changes? And observe it in your body. I'm a somatic practitioner, so I cannot talk about bodies enough. So whenever we feel anything strong like that, that doesn't let you go on or doesn't let you stay with, right? Stay with your body, observe the place. Where is it? Where do you feel that tension? Where do you feel the fear? Is it fear? What does that feel like? What can you do? If you asked your body, if the mind wasn't participating, what would your body ask you to do, right? At the moment you pay attention to that, your body will tell you. There are signals, there are ways that you see and you read your body, you can do things for yourself, right? So you start feeling something. I feel something in my chest. People report chest, bellies, lower back. We have the resources, we have the skills. So warm up your hands, massage yourself, stay with yourself, hear yourself, identify the fears, and then address them.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll try to do more of self-analysis.
The change is always, the change is always very, very difficult. And a lot of people, like, there are people that really love changes, like they are changing every single moment, everything. And there are people that really pass a lot of it, like very much connected to the psychology types. But whatever it is, it should be worked with. We have a question on YouTube, Diana. Young gentleman, or not young, I don't know. I don't know who is this gentleman, but he's asking, when locked down with others, how do you balance an active effort to support each other's health and happiness with the need for others to have their personal time and space?
So if you live with others, how do you meet their needs and how do you manage the space?
How you balance an active effort to support each other's health and happiness with the need for others to have their personal time and space. Yes, personal time and space is the key.
Right. Okay, so I think we've touched on it a little bit before. The time and space are very on right now. So we can be in a very small space and be very understanding of each other's needs. We can be in a very big space and not feel like we have enough space. It's through the conversation. It's through really sitting and kind of managing, planning in advance, right? So it's very important to keep the routine that any type of routine, whether it's, you definitely take a shower in the morning or you stretch and then take a shower and then you do this and then you do that. It's important to do that in conversation if you're living with other people at home, whether it's in a relationship, romantic relationship, or living with your child, sit down and talk about how we're going to manage this. How do we take the space? When do we take that? Ask for each other's needs, right? Now, some people are thriving. I mean, I have friends that live in a very loud, big households, and it works beautifully for them. It's wonderful to watch them, but I can get extremely overwhelmed if I'm in a environment like that too long, right? So I know that I need my little quiet. I need my space. So ask each other and learn about each other. This is a great opportunity to learn about your partners. What do they need? How do they need it? When they need it, right? How can I provide that for you? How can we in this one room make sure that you have time to work or space to work or time to meditate or time to, I don't know, listen to music you like? How do we take turns? And I had an interesting situation with a family, I think it's the same family I mentioned before, that the guy, his resource is when he plays his music. So he works hard, he's got 3 children, he takes care of his family. And if he doesn't play his music, he feels like, you know, life is on pause, right? But he says, well, how can I play my instrument in an apartment when the kids are there, they're doing work and so on. And so we worked on him asking for that time, whether he's gonna ask his wife, you know, can you please, I don't know, take the children on a walk or sit down and I'm gonna do a little rehearsal concert for you guys. But ask, learn, and take the time and space that you need. I think that's the only way we can do it right now. And if there's and compensate for what you're asking for, right? By providing what you can provide.
Yeah. I just remember the case when one of my friends, she told me, you know, I discovered that my husband loves the tea with sugar. Before I thought he doesn't. So it's kind of discoveries, small but important.
Yeah, it's actually interesting. You mentioned that. It reminded me we deploy different skills that we didn't even know about each other, right? Our partners do things that we didn't know, or suddenly show up in a way that, well, it wasn't needed before, and now it's necessary. It's like, oh, you can do that. We also have some people live with partners that we can't talk to them. They get easily overwhelmed. So it doesn't have to be the person you're living with. It doesn't, we get stuck with the roles. Oh, if he's my husband, I don't know, boyfriend or what, then I should be able to speak to him, talk to him. Well, it'd be nice. It would be wonderful if we could, but it's not always that person that can hear about your fears or your certain emotions. It can be extremely overwhelming for some people. So it's important to find somebody else. It could be a friend, it could be anybody else. Find the right person for that. Don't overwhelm each other with, well, I need this, so you should be. It would be nice, but it's not always available. So instead of focusing on it's not available, I can talk to you, focus on who you can do that with, and maybe provide a little quiet for that person who cannot be too overwhelmed.
This is super helpful for me personally. This is one of YouTube channel visitors wrote, so it was super helpful for him.
That's great. Yeah. Thank you.
We are male audience too. Do we have other questions, comments, colleagues? Everything is good, everything is clear. For me, it's not.
It's not? Well, maybe you have a question.
I have a lot of questions. Like, okay, I understood a lot of things. Now I have to go and deal with it. It's right. Like.
Well, maybe we can just, since we have, I know, a few minutes left, just put it all together with what can we do, right? And if anybody wants to jump in and say some of the things they're doing would be great. I mean, I don't want to repeat what's all over the internet, do yoga, stretch, listen to music, even though it sounds like so trivial, it's so available, but sometimes it's so hard to just get up and get yourself into it, right? So find a right resource for you. If it's not this yoga class, it could be, I don't know, stretching for 5-10 minutes with somebody. Make a little date with a friend that you kind of encourage each other to do it together. but moving the body, moving the energy in the body is very important. Like I said before about the research, things are kind of slowing down. There's a lot of pain in the body because we're becoming stiff, we're not moving enough, there's not space enough. Emotionally, there doesn't feel like we have enough space, as well as physically. So it's very important to move the bodies around. Really think of the senses, like the 5 senses. What do I want to listen to? What do I want to taste? What do I want to smell? What do I want to see? And give yourself that nourishment, I guess, providing for your senses, providing that pleasure. It's okay to not be in a acting place, but more in a taking and just self-care place. Whether it's music, piece of art, definitely. I mean, everybody says that, I will repeat, don't watch too much news. It's the panic button, right? If you don't want to push your panic buttons, then don't be obsessed with the news. Listen to the news that are not going to provoke anxiety, but just going to give you information. Listen to it once, twice a day, turn it off, go back to other things. Use water, I don't know, showers, baths, things that are pleasant, physically pleasant, that will then, emotionally nourish us as well.
You know what I did? I wrote a book.
Oh, wow. During this
time. Yeah. It just, and I painted I have 3 paintings. So, I mean, yeah, you can always find some way out to use your energy and,
absolutely
go inside, as you mentioned.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone. Like, people are writing down their comments. Thank you very much. Thank you, ladies. Amazing conversation. May I ask everyone to write just one word that describes your state of mind now? Like, are you emotional? Are you like focused? What you are? For example, I'm kind of provoked. I am provoked by Diana.
I hope in a good way.
In a good way, yeah. Probably the most practical guide. Thank you. And I'm awakened. Thank you, Anna. Content, Arpi. I am an active thinking process, says Diana. Another Diana.
Yes.
Challenge, this Zara Galstan's feedback. Yeah, challenge, like provoked, challenge, the same. You see, the words makes difference.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, so we are focused, Rosa. Yeah. Okay, so we are focused, challenged, provoked, we are in content and awakened. And for all these words and operational is like from Cascade team. Cascade team is operational, as always. I enjoy myself hearing my 2 dear friends, Diana and Arpi. Thank you, Leanna. Leanna is writing. Thank you, darling. So for these all words, thank you very much, Diana, because it's kind of, it means that there is a process going on in our minds now, in our minds, in our heart, in our, actions. And I really hope we will have another time and another opportunity to talk about these important things. But for now, that's all. Our 1 hour is done. And I think we have covered a lot. I feel that.
Well,
Thank
I hope
you
that you really is the self-care, self-love, and be safe, everybody. Thank you so much for inviting
me. Thank you. You too. Take care. Thank you, Diana. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. I love you, Diana.
Love you too. Are we leaving?
You are staying.
I'm staying.